Hello friends. We are going to continue with share capital, right? And we have been discussing about a very important topic in the share capital, that is forfeiture of shares, right? Now in the forfeiture, in the last lecture we started with reissue of forfeited shares, right? So we started with reissue of forfeited shares. That means first of all you cancelled the subscription of a shareholder on the non-payment of a call, right? Then what you do, the shares that you forfeited, you reissue those forfeited shares to the public. Clear? Then I told you that this reissue can be for three types. One is at par, second is at premium, and third is at discount. Right? So if the forfeiture is at par, then the journal entry is bank account debit to share capital account. If it is at a premium, then a journal entry is bank account debit to share capital account, and the securities premium will always be transferred to a separate account known as to securities premium reserve account, right? And if the reissue is at discount, then I told you the journal entry will be bank account debit, and this discount will be met from forfeited shares account, and what will be credited? Share capital account, right? And I told you that whatever amount that we have forfeited, we have transferred that amount to the forfeited shares account, and there are restrictions on the use of that amount. The amount which has been transferred to the forfeited shares account, there are restrictions to that amount, right? So that amount can be used for this purpose. Clear? Then I told you about the capital gain. What I told you about the capital gain, see, there are two pockets. This is pocket 1 and this is pocket 2. Now originally you issued some shares and you received 5,000 rupees. You received 5,000 rupees on those shares. But subsequently, because of the non-payment of the calls, those shares are forfeited, and that amount of forfeited 5,000 rupees is kept in pocket 1. This is forfeited amount, right? Forfeited amount is kept in pocket 1. Now you reissue shares, right, and receive amount on the reissue of shares. If you are issuing the shares, you will receive the amount, right? Suppose you receive 10,000 rupees. Now you have 15,000 rupees in pocket 1. But Companies Act says that in case you reissue the forfeited shares, then the balance of the forfeited share account will be transferred to pocket 2. This 5,000 will be transferred to pocket 2, and what you will have in pocket 1? 10,000 rupees. In pocket 2 you have 5,000 rupees. This is in case of reissue only. If you are reissuing the shares only, then this amount will be transferred. Otherwise this amount will not be transferred. Clear? Then I told you whatever is lying in pocket 2, this is your capital gain. Capital gain, right? And this amount will be transferred to a account called capital reserve account. Reserve. Clear? So this is the whole story, that in case of reissue of shares, you will have the capital gain. You might have capital gain if you have the balance in forfeited shares account. Right? If you have any balance in pocket 2, that pocket 2 reflects the capital gain that will be transferred to capital reserve account. Clear, friends? This much is clear. Now, what we are going to do in this lecture is a topic called all forfeited shares are not reissued. Right? In the last lecture, what we discussed is that whatever shares you have forfeited, you reissue all the shares. Now today we are going to discuss a part where they say all the forfeited shares are not reissued. Only some part of forfeited shares are reissued. Then how to deal with that situation, that is what we are going to do. Right? For this, I'll take an example. Right? We'll understand this topic with the help of an example. Company forfeited 600 shares of rupees 10 each. Right? On these shares, rupees 2 on application has been received. Right? But 3 on allotment and rupees 5 on first and final call are not received. Clear? Try to understand this much, that a company forfeited 600 shares of rupees 10 each. On these shares, rupees 2 on application has been received by the company. But rupees 3 on allotment and rupees 5 on first and final call are not received. That means calls were called by the company but not received by the company. Calls in areas, allotment money and the first and final call. Clear? Then further it says, friends, do write these examples. These will really help you to understand the topic. If you are able to understand these small examples, then you can do it in big questions, right? Then further it says, company reissued 200 shares, right, out of 600 shares. Then there are cases, case 1 at par, case 2 at premium of rupees 2 and case 3 at discount of rupee 1. Clear? So now company forfeited 600 shares, but out of 600 shares, company has reissued only 200 shares. So that is the topic, that all the forfeited shares are not reissued. Some part of forfeited shares is reissued. Out of 600 shares, 200 are reissued only. Now how to deal with this situation? First of all, I will ask all of you to pass the entry for forfeiture. Just stop the video here, friends. Try to pass the entry for forfeiture. It is a very basic entry, right? We have discussed that in detail in the previous lectures. So you all are expert at it. Pass the entry for forfeiture. Now, what will be the entry? Let's see. First account to be affected is share capital account. With how much? On 600 shares, rupees 10 were called. 6,000. Right? To forfeited shares account. On 600 shares, how much money you have received? You have received only rupees 2 on application. Right? So what is the amount that you have received? 1200. Then 2 calls in arrears account. How much? On 600 rupees, you have not received 8 rupees, that is 4800 you have not received. Clear? This much is clear. This is a very simple basic entry of forfeiture. Now, we have to issue only 200 shares. Right? What is the entry for issue of 200 shares at par? At par means for rupees 10. Now, let us see what we are going to do for reissue. Case 1. Issue at par. Right? What will be the entry if you are reissuing 200 shares at par? That means at the rate of rupees 10. What is the entry I told you? Bank account debit to share capital account. How much? On 200 shares at the rate of rupees 10. So you have received 2000 rupees here. Now, I told you whenever there is a reissue of shares, there will always be a capital gain. There can be a capital gain. I won't say there will always be a capital gain. There might be a capital gain. Now, can you tell me in this case what will be the capital gain? I told you whatever the balance is there in the forfeited shares account, that will be our capital gain. Isn't it? So you will say, sir, this rupees 1200 is the capital gain. Right? But I will say this rupees 1200 is not the capital gain. Because this rupees 1200, this amount is calculated for 600 shares. But we have reissued only 200 shares. So how can we say that 1200 is the capital gain? This forfeited shares account has been credited with 1200. This amount has been calculated on 600 shares. And how much shares you have reissued? Only 200. Then how can you compare this 600 with 200? How can you say that this whole 1200 is my capital gain? Absolutely wrong. Then what will be the capital gain? If on 600 shares, simple mathematics, if on 600 shares my capital gain is 1200 rupees, then can you tell me on 200 shares what will be the forfeited shares amount? Divided by 600 multiplied by 200. This comes to 400 rupees. So 1200 was calculated for 600 shares and I calculated the amount in forfeited shares account for 200 shares. That means if I have to shift amount from pocket 1 to pocket 2, I will shift only for 200 shares and not 600 shares. Right? So I know the amount for 600 shares. I can calculate the amount for 200 shares. That amount leads to 400 rupees. So these 400 rupees I will take from pocket 1 and keep it in pocket 2. Right? What will be the journal entry for transfer of pockets? That will be forfeited account debit to capital reserve account. This is 400. Sorry. Clear? I'll again explain this. Listen to it very carefully. You have 1200 rupees in the forfeited shares account. And I told you that in case of reissue of shares, whatever balance in the forfeited shares account is, you will transfer it from pocket 1 to pocket 2. Clear? Then I added one line in the last lecture, to the extent of shares reissued. Right? And there I told you that I will explain this in the next lectures. Right? To the extent of shares reissued, the balance in the forfeited shares account will be transferred to capital reserve account. So here this 1200 amount has been calculated on 600 shares, but you have reissued only 200 shares. So we will calculate the amount on 200 shares. If 1200 is the amount on 600 shares, what will be the amount on 200 shares? 400 rupees. Right? So that amount will be transferred to capital reserve. Write down the note here. This is the important note now. To the extent of forfeited shares reissued, the amount lying in forfeited shares account will be transferred to capital reserve. Right? Clear? So to the extent of forfeited shares reissued, here 200 shares have been reissued. So we cannot say that the amount calculated on 600 shares is our capital gain. Our gain is only to the extent of shares that have been reissued, that is 200 shares. So if on 600 shares my capital gain is 1200, then on 200 shares my capital gain, my amount in the forfeited shares account is 400. So this 400 is treated as capital gain and is transferred to capital reserve account. Clear? So this is case 1, issue at par. Now let us see case 2. When the issue is at a premium of rupees 2, what is the journal entry for this? Bank account debit. Now what is the amount received in bank on 200 shares at the rate of 12 rupees? 10 plus 2, 2400. What is the amount of share capital? My share capital is the face value of shares, 2000. And then the securities premium will be taken to security premium reserve account, that will be on 200 shares rupees 2 as premium 400 rupees. Clear? This is at a premium of rupees 2. Now what is the balance in the forfeited shares account? This is what we calculated. To the extent of shares reissued. We have reissued only 200 shares. So on 200 shares, the balance in forfeited shares account is 400. So this 400 we will take out from pocket 1 and transfer to pocket 2. That is the capital reserve account. So the journal entry will be same. That is forfeited shares account debit to capital reserve account, right? This comes to 400 and 400. Clear, friends? Simple. Now let us see the third case. At a discount of rupee 1. That means at rupees 9 you have reissued the shares. What will be the journal entry? Bank account debit. Now in bank on 200 shares you have received rupees 9 only, that is 1800. And to share capital is the face value of the share. In the share capital you will take face value of the share, that is 10 rupees, 2000. Now this discount of rupee 1 will be compensated from forfeited shares account. Right? So on 200 shares, 1 rupee is the discount, 200 rupees will be debited to forfeited shares account. That means we are taking this money out of forfeited shares account. We are transferring this money from pocket 2 to pocket 1. Not the capital gain. Right? You are transferring this money from pocket 2 back to pocket 1. Right? In pocket 1 you received 1800 instead of 2000. You should have received 2000 rupees. You received 1800. Then what do? You take 200 from pocket 2 and transfer it to pocket 1. Now can you tell me what is left in your pocket 2? Earlier you transferred 400 rupees to your pocket 2. This pocket 2 is your capital gain. Now you have taken out 200 rupees from that pocket and transferred to pocket 1. What is left in pocket 2? 200 rupees. Isn't it? Here the forfeited shares have 400 rupees. Right? Out of 400 rupees, 200 rupees you have taken out of pocket 2 and transfer it to pocket 1. Clear? So what happened? What is your capital gain? What is left in pocket 2? Only 200 rupees. So forfeited shares account debit to capital reserve account. How much amount? Total forfeited amount on 200 shares was 400. Out of this 400 we have utilized 200 rupees to compensate the discount on reissue. So what is left? 200 rupees. This 200 rupees is our capital gain and it will be transferred to capital reserve account. Clear? So remember this pocket concept. How you take out money from pocket 1, transfer to pocket 2. Whatever is there in the pocket 2 is your capital gain. If you utilize some money out of the pocket 2, then subtract your capital gain. Reduce your capital gain. Money out of pocket 2 can be used only in case the shares are reissued at a discount. Right? Otherwise, the whole of the money is our capital gain. So friends, is this clear? The shares, all the forfeited shares are not reissued, only the part of forfeited shares have been reissued. Out of 600 shares, 200 shares have been reissued. Then I told you, to the extent of shares reissued, the balance in the forfeited shares will be transferred to capital reserve. Now if on 600 shares the balance in the forfeited shares account is 1200, then on 200 shares what is the balance of forfeited shares? 400 rupees. You cannot take the whole of 1200. That 1200 is for 600 shares, but you are reissuing only 200. That is why I told you that word is important, to the extent of shares reissued. Clear? Remember this. So we have discussed one more important topic, that is all the forfeited shares are not reissued, only part of forfeited shares have been reissued. How to treat this we have discussed now. I hope this much is clear to you. Right? Still friends, if you have any queries, just send me an email, right, at ksjteaching @gmail.com. Right? So in the next lecture, what we are going to do is reissue of shares in case of pro rata allotment. Right? Reissue of shares in case of pro rata allotment. Right? So that's all for this lecture, friends. Thank you so much.